Hi, everybody, guys. Welcome back to my channel. Guys, thank you so much for being here. Let me go ahead and do a little intro and give the people some time to get in here because I don't know if notifications went out. I'm hoping that they did, and I'm hoping that the internet's working well. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Let me start this little intro so we can get going. Alrighty, guys, let me remove this for a second. All right, so first of all, I just want to say this is gonna be the biggest trigger warning, probably that I've ever given on this channel. Biggest trigger warning, number one. But I watch the docuseries now. I watch all 4 episodes today of Quiet on Set. You can find that docuseries. I think it's on. Well, I found mine on Max, and then there's I think Discovery ID. Okay. What the docu-series really focuses on is essentially just shining, exposing the light to some of these child shows that were kind of running up in the 90s to the 2000s, specifically Nickelodeon. So, like shows like Drake and Josh, The Amanda Show, iCarly, um, basically birthed from the creator Dan Schneider. Now, I binge watched the whole series, all 4 of them this morning, and I truly had to, like I didn't know if I had really watched what I had just really watched. Now, let me just be very, very honest with y'all, okay? Growing up as a child, I didn't have cable. Okay, so I mean, I was happy about TGIF Friday, like on NBC, the WB, the UPN show, like all these networks that were local, and I could just all I needed was an antenna was amazing, right? Every once in a while, we get a little snowstorm or whatever, whatever. The cables would freeze, and suddenly we have cable from somebody's neighborhood. All right, I'm just putting it out there how it is. Some of us, like myself, we weren't really made. We really didn't know about these shows like that. Like me. I definitely didn't have cable until maybe years later, and so beyond. After graduating high school, that's when after that, because you're able to pay for it. But back then, we just had the good old antennas, right? And it's interesting because now hearing and seeing some of the stuff, and I know like Sloan and BJ Investigates, they've been exposing some of this stuff for quite some time. Sloan Hooks, shout out to him. Y'all know I love Sloan. He's been putting in the work to really do some of these edited videos as well as BJ and package some of this information so that we can really try to understand, well, what is it? And for me as somebody that didn't grow up with something like iCarly or, you know, Drake and Josh or the Amanda show for that matter, it always seemed kind of like, well, those are those shows, right? But seeing this and seeing just the depravity in so many levels, number 1, but, it just made me realize, like, abuse happens to anybody, right? But then you have these working adults, such as the cameraman, the writers, people there that's kinda sat there and were like, "Oh, it's all good. Oh, we're scared too, we can't speak out. Oh, it's the '90s, we couldn't get a job then. Oh, it's." And so, damn, I just feel like maybe not watching that kinda saved my thought process a little bit. Maybe I saved my because even seeing this now, it's just a little crazy. So while I had scheduled this whole little thing, this live, then you had Dan Schneider who decides to do an apology. I didn't know. We didn't know. You had the interview person who was a former cast member of some show who truly was like, an apologist to a certain degree. Now, I don't want to come for the man, but I definitely felt some type of way. So I'm really going to try to work on this a little bit backwards. If you watch the whole thing or at least 1 or 2 episodes of it, let me know in the chat. But let's go ahead and start by watching a little preview, and then we're gonna go over to Dan Snyder, and we're gonna drag his ass for a little bit. Okay? Let me go ahead and play this. This is the preview of it, okay?
In the early 90s, Nickelodeon was kid everything. And you better hope that your house had cable.
Wasn't there to educate you. We were there to have fun, to get slimed, to be entertained.
Now, I will say this. I was a little envious because, like I said, we would get cable when it would snow and it wasn't our cable. The cables were frozen, and it was intercepting with somebody that had cable in the neighborhood in the block. And now I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one. I wasn't the only poor kid who didn't have cable and was praying for a snowstorm so I could see a little Nickelodeon or Disney or whatever the hell other cable-like show, right? Yeah, I remember this. I was like, damn, they got slime on them. How fun. Like, wow, I like this. But yeah, it wasn't meant to be for me.
And this is when Dan Schneider arrives, Nickelodeon's golden boy. He created these shows that were hugely successful for them.
No one had ever really done sketch comedy starring kids for kids.
He launched the careers of child actors who became major stars.
For 20 years, he shaped children's entertainment and culture.
Wow.
Thank you for being here.
What's a man gonna do with so much power? Literally, how much power can one person have? Mm.
But that marked one of the darkest chapters. Working for Dan was like being in an abusive relationship.
Now, this lady right here, I'm sorry. I believe that it was like working in an abusive relationship. But man, she was an adult writing some of this bullshit shit that these kids had to go through. And that's the piece that I have to side eye. I really do. I'm just saying, I'm having a hard time being sympathetic to lady right here, okay?
Dan's treatment of people on his shows was an open secret.
So my lawyer filed complaints, gender discrimination, hostile work environment, harassment, and it was so devastating.
And they kept, they still work there, okay? Now I get that. Maybe they felt like they couldn't leave. This was such a competitive field. Nobody wants to work at a temp job. Nobody wants to be a waitress nowadays. Nobody wants to suffer. This was the show to work at. So you would take it. You would take it, right? But some of these people were the ones writing the script for some of these victims, these now adults. I cannot.
How safe can any kids be in that environment? There would be even bigger problems down the line with actual pedophiles on set. These are 3 predators who worked at Nickelodeon, all in a short amount of time.
3 pedos. All right? 3 pedos. Yes.
Hey guys, what are you for you?
It was a toxic environment. It made me trust people less.
We were there for so many hours. You get comfortable with people until you're not.
I had no idea what I was saving my son from. It's a house of horrors.
They find this enormous trove of child pornography.
The officer said we found Ziploc bags, each one with a girl's name on it.
11 charges of child sexual abuse related to a child actor.
It made me wonder who was being hurt.
I've been waiting 17 years for today.
That's crazy,
It
man.
wasn't dealing with anybody on the shows or anything, right?
It was a child actor.
On one of our shows.
Yes.
Have you ever told your story publicly before?
You know, I get that it sucks, baby girl, but I gotta be honest with you. I gotta be honest with you. I'm having a hard time. I get it. You know, we cannot look at this in the lens of 2024, but shit, am I pissed off and I'm gonna express it. I'm sorry. Okay. I get it. We cannot. Different times, you know, we were all there. What, like, I get that, but I cannot not be upset. And let me tell you, especially on the second episode, like, it was just too much. All right. So I watched it, binged it, and then I said, did I really watch what I just watched? I went to rewatch it again, and I said, no, I seriously, like, is this for real? This is real. This is real. Maybe that's why I didn't have cable television. I don't know. This is crazy. So 4 episodes. Now I don't know if there's more. I think it's just 4 at this point. The victim, the one that comes out, I think in episode 3 and 4, is Drake Bell, and he starts talking a little bit more about the sexual abuse that he suffered through all of this. So as I've watched all of these, then you got Dan Schneider that comes with this apology, okay? Apology. We're gonna watch it. I kind of want to jump there now because it literally, I mean, it was interesting. I saw BJ's comment, and BJ said, hey, he just released a video. And at that time, it was only about an hour, and it was only like 4,000 or 3,000 views. It went from that to, like, at this point, it's probably at 70. Yeah, it's at 72,000 views at this point. So let's watch this and let's react to it. If you have not watched all 4 episodes, and some of this is really may not make a whole lot of sense to you, but it will if you do at least watch the first 2.
Hey, it's BooG. I played T-Bo on Nickelodeon's iCarly. I got a chance to watch the Quiet on Set program, and I reached out to Dan to see if it was something that he'd be willing to discuss. I'm pleased to say that he said yes.
Okay.
Dan, how are you?
I'm okay. I really appreciate you reaching out and giving me the opportunity to talk to you about what we saw over the last 2 nights.
I'm really glad you're here because I believe this is important.
For sure.
We've got a lot of things to unpack. But before I dive into my list of topics that I'd like to discuss, is there anything you'd like to start off with?
Absolutely. Watching over the past 2 nights was very difficult. Me facing my past behaviors,
Oh.
Some of which are embarrassing and that I regret. And I definitely owe some people a pretty strong apology.
Yeah, because I mean, nobody told him about his past behaviors, you know. So now he's facing them. I don't know how many years later, you know, watching them on this series. Like, y'all, he didn't know. He didn't know about his past behaviors. I mean, you got writers doing lawsuits. You got people over here being victimized. He didn't know. He didn't know. Cut him some fucking slack. He didn't know. Okay? Look at him. He didn't know. Doesn't that look like the face of somebody not fucking knowing? Look at this. Look at this. He didn't know. He didn't know.
Let's talk about the massages.
Okay.
Watching the content yesterday, it was disturbing.
It was wrong.
He said, first question, let's talk about the massages. Okay. Yeah, by the way, that's something that is covered, right? Like in the episodes, he would have to force some, at least, this is what was said, that he was forcing, especially the writers, to do these massages. Some of the cast members, they would do these massages. Uh, you know, I'm wondering this. I'm just wondering for the writer's side, and I'm not blaming, but I am questioning and I'm inquiring. If you're having to leave this really hostile work environment, if it was hostile for you as a writer, what do you think it was like for those children, those minors? I'd like to know. If it was hostile for you, you're massaging these men, you got Amanda Bynes locked in a fucking room for I don't know how many hours. They spend a lot of, time together. What do you think that was like for those kids? I'd like to know. I mean, that was a question that some of these writers didn't answer because those would be my questions too. But okay, let's go ahead and let Mr. Snyder, who's it's been hard for him. I mean, look at his face. All right,
It was wrong. It was wrong that I ever
wrong.
put anybody in that position. It was the wrong thing to do. I'd never do it today. I'm embarrassed that I did it then.
You won't
I
do it today.
apologize to anybody that I ever put in that situation. And even additionally, I apologize to the people who were walking around Video Village or wherever they happened, because there were lots of people there who witnessed it who also may have felt uncomfortable. So I owe.
So when did he apologize? Yesterday? When the docuseries came out? Before the docuseries came out? When was I'm gonna need the behavior panel to analyze this behavior right now, today. That's what I'm gonna need. I'm gonna need it. Like right now.
Owe them an apology as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Dan, talk to me about the writer's room. From what I saw, not cool.
No.
I don't know. I'm like, I think for me, like, I want the host, and I know he's like a former cast member. I think he was a cast member of iCarly. I'm not really sure. Like I said, these were not shows that I would watch. But, I feel like he's being very like, ooh, so tell me, that wasn't cool. Those massages weren't cool. But I like how they started with the massage question first, right? Like that's important.
No, and I don't mean to cut you off, but if I can cut right to the chase, let me just say, no writer should ever feel uncomfortable in any writer's room, ever, period, the end, no excuses. Most TV writers, comedy writers have been in writers' rooms, and they are aware that a lot of times there are inappropriate jokes made and inappropriate topics come
Yes.
up. But the fact that I participated in that, especially when I was leading the room, it embarrasses me. I shouldn't have done it. And I can tell you why it hurts really bad for me. I remember very clearly my early experiences, my first experiences in the entertainment business. I was green, I was scared, I was excited. It meant the world to me that I was getting those opportunities. And I went in and I got lucky because they were great. My first couple of experiences were fantastic. And the fact that I didn't pay that forward to every employee that walked through my door, it hurts my heart because I should have. And I wish I could go back and fix that. In the writer's room, there's no doubt that sometimes those jokes went beyond the pale, and I said things that went too far or made practical jokes that
Yeah, I mean, it was really, it went too far. When a man, or anybody for that matter, man or woman, they pretend, or you have to act like you're being sodomized or something like that. I mean, that would definitely be one of those jokes that, it just went far beyond. Now, this is what I want to know. Who came up with this motherfucking, like, who wrote the script for this? For this young boy to act like little fetus. He's this hip hop fetus. His mom is pregnant. Everybody thought it was ha ha hoo hoo hilarious, yada yada yada. Right? Like, I want to know this. Where'd this come from? Who gave this the okay? Who said it was okay? In their writing room. When did they say that? Yeah, let's have this child, put him in a bodysuit so he can act like little fetus, and then, put in that what is it, stereotype that because he can rap, and he could totally sell, drugs, right? Like, we could just give him those stereotypes and he could wear that proud, right? This is an acting gig. They're getting paid. That's what they do it. Yeah, definitely.
went too far, and that was wrong. And that was because I was an inexperienced producer. I was immature. Wouldn't happen today, but I'm just really sorry it happened.
You better fucking believe it. It wouldn't happen today, y'all. It wouldn't happen today.
Yeah. Now we know you've had a lot of success over 2 decades.
Yes.
Thousands of people have worked with you, for you.
Okay.
Let's speak directly to the people who did not have a good experience with you.
Yes.
Okay. I would like to speak to those people because I hate that anybody worked for me and didn't have a good time. You know me. You've been on my sets. Look, I've had some employees that have worked for me for 10 years, some more than 20 years, who would work with me again, but not everybody. There's still a significant number that didn't have a great time working for me. So my batting average isn't nearly high enough in that area.
You know what's interesting is that Brian Peck, when he had all these people in Hollywood, it's similar to the Danny Masterson situation, right? You had all these people after his conviction, and they're writing these letters, these character letters, right, to this to the judge. And even that I had to sit back and I said, Lord have mercy. Like, for me, Boy Meets World was the show because that wasn't on, well, it was on cable, but it was also something that I could watch. It was on air, and that was my favorite show. To know that some of these folks wrote these letters to protect a pedo that he had hired or that he had supervised, it's just like, oh my God, it's like a web. It's a web. Yes. And what does Boogie have to do with it? Yeah, why is he the one giving why is he the one giving the interview? I'd like to know. Isn't it weird that he's the one that's doing the interview? I just find that to be interesting. He asked Dan to interview him on his own channel. It's giving Nickelodeon setup. It's giving PR, right? It's definitely given like, let's normalize this, shed a couple tears, and tell us your side of the situation. Yeah.
Area. And the way they wouldn't get the best of me is that I would let the pressure of doing 40 or even more episodes per year, I would let that pressure get to me, which a good boss should never, ever do.
Was there
Yes.
specific things that you were doing?
Sure. I would snap at people sometimes. I would be snarky when I could have given them a nicer answer. I would not give people the time that they needed. I would be in too big a hurry to get on to the next thing I had to do.
That just sounds like, oh my God, like that just sounds so horrible. He was overworked, y'all. He was. That's what he said. He would snap at people. Sometimes he would belittle people. Sometimes he would, make these kind of sexual innuendo jokes type of thing. Yeah, pobrecito, pobrecito. My goodness, I just, mm, I don't know what to say.
And watching that show, it made me. There were so many times I wanted to pick up a phone and call some of those people and say,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. And
I'm so
let's
sorry.
talk about it. And I wish you'd had a better time, and I wish I could have shown you a better
Yeah.
experience.
Oh, Jesus.
Now, you've written hundreds of episodes. Thousands of jokes have been told.
Yeah.
But currently, where we are, some people think that some of those jokes are inappropriate for children.
I thought that is such a bullshit statement to make right then and there. It's almost like because of the time that we're at right now, that's inappropriate now, but it wasn't inappropriate then. I could believe, yes, to a certain degree. It might be inappropriate. It was appropriate then. It's different now, different times. Me too. All this stuff that's happening, people getting called out. How about it just wasn't appropriate at the time at all? These are children, right? It's the way in which he phrases this question that I wasn't really sure. Like, are you trying to take away from the people's experience by that? The victim's experience by that? Are you trying to take away from that when you say that? It's almost like, now people are having an issue. No, how about people had an issue? Period. That's it. That there was an issue. And Christina, I can acknowledge that. But we can't take away the way in which this question is being put. It disregards the person that's bringing the issue to the front right now, forward right now, right? It reminds me of that. Well, why didn't they talk about this shit before? Why didn't they disclose the sexual abuse, back then? Why didn't they, this idea that there was a time frame in which a victim that has been through trauma is supposed to be able to talk? Like your time convenience is what works. I'm not able to talk about this 15 years later when I'm having PTSD and I can't sleep. I have to talk about it in your time frame because it's a different time, right? So yeah, this right here really kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I'm just saying. It really did.
What do you think of that?
All these jokes that you're speaking of, that the show covered over the past 2 nights, every one of those jokes was written for a kid audience because kids thought they were funny and only funny. Okay?
Yes.
Now we have some adults looking back at them 20 years later through their lens, and they're looking at them and they're saying, oh, I don't think that's appropriate for a kid show.
Oh, like 20. So these adults, these kids were who exactly? We have some adults. Again, taking away responsibility, putting it in the frame of it's because it's that time frame. Everybody's getting canceled right now, right? That's his response.
Show. And I have no problem with that. If that's how anyone feels, let's cut those jokes out of the show. Just like I would have done 20 years ago or 25 years ago. I cut it. I want my shows to be popular. I want everyone to like. The more people who like the shows, the happier I am.
Yeah.
So if there's anything in a show that needs to be cut because it's upsetting somebody, let's cut it.
So I think it's big for you to say with your work, if it's viewed as that today, you don't have a problem.
Cut it. Cut it.
I mean, that's a solution.
The last thing I want to ever do is
if it's viewed like that today, you don't have a problem. Well, there you go. That fixes everything, y'all. Y'all can go home now. Go ahead, log off. We can go home now. I can end the stream right now. That's it. That's we fixed it. We just fixed it. We could cut off the stream right now and there should be no problem, right? We're good. What are you waiting for? Right? That's the solution. We got it. Cut it off. Remove it from the show.
Is put any content in a show that's going to upset my audience and make them want to turn off the TV. Why would I ever want to do that?
That makes sense. I want to give you an opportunity to kind of elaborate on something.
Okay.
The thought process from the series is you had the power to just write a joke, and no matter what, it's going on TV. You just had that type of power. Is that true?
The notion that I had the power to just produce whatever I wanted and
well, wasn't he a writer and producer at one of the shows too? I mean, he's had several shows under his belt, but that was the thought process. Matter of fact, the editor, hold up, because I got these people's names written down. Right, the editor, the lady, there was an episode, I think it was episode 2. She couldn't even get up and get a pee break. Right, she was editing. She was working directly next to him. At some point, he was a writer of some of these shows. So I'd like to know, like, what does he mean by this question? He had a lot more control. Why are we trying to take control away from this man who had it the whole fucking time? Right?
and have it air is completely false.
Okay.
There were many, many levels of scrutiny. Okay. We had executives in LA. We had executives in New York.
So two coasts.
Two coasts
yes.
of approval. Yes. And by the way, approval at every stage, really.
Okay.
And I'm talking about wardrobe. I'm talking about makeup, sound, sets, dialogue, jokes, everything.
Now, when you say approval, these obviously that's a hierarchy, not your colleagues or people in the room. Okay.
No, not my colleagues. No, these are my bosses. And then
y'all notice how he had to put that out there? He's like, this is a hierarchy right here. We had to, like, somebody had to respond to somebody, so somebody else is responsible. Again, kind of deflecting from the fact that, like, he's just doing his job, you guys. What are you doing? Leave this man alone.
And then their bosses, and then their bosses. And they're approving all of this stuff. Okay.
They're approving it.
And we're also shooting it in front of all sorts of adults and caregivers and the set teacher and the families. Everybody's watching it. And if anybody had said anything, hey, we don't like that, that's not appropriate, then it would have been cut out.
Now, I'm gonna push back a little bit because the series painted you in this way that you were just the guy that was doing what he wanted, and people were afraid to confront you about things. So just humor me, say that was the case. What would have been the ultimate way to...
Okay, if nobody on the set, if all of the dozens and dozens of adults that were on the set, if they didn't say anything, If my bosses said, if they insisted, you got to make a change here, you got to cut that, I had to do it. I had no choice.
Got it.
So what about when they didn't insist? What about when they sat there and they were complicit? And shout out to BJ says, I agree with him on this point. He wasn't alone. I mean, truly, is there more people to hold accountable? Hold them all accountable. But what I don't like about him right now is that he's just deflecting, and he's also like no ownership of certain parts, right? Let me include everybody, which is fine. Then put a name on it, put some directions to it, put an address on it. Who exactly are you talking about? Right? Because that's the piece that I'm just like, okay, well, for some of us that didn't watch some of these shows or, don't know the hierarchy of this stuff, yeah, put a name on it. Who else? Who else are we protecting? Is there more people that we don't know? Yeah.
Now, this next one, it kind of hit close to home. Being a new father, I wouldn't be opposed to my child being in the entertainment industry.
Oh,
Doesn't
Lord.
matter what age. Yeah. Seeing some of those on-air dares, seeing it now from where you are now in your life, what do you think of that?
Now I do remember Fear Factor, but I think that there's this one episode where one of the cast members is putting like a scorpion in his mouth, like holding a scorpion. Like even that, you had the peanut butter incident where all the dogs had to lick this young actor as well, lick it off of him. It was just like, huh? Is this for real? The scorpion part. It's one thing if you have Fear Factor and you have like consenting adults. Yo, you want to get bitten by a fucking scorpion? Go for it. That's your deal. I mean, yeah, right. You're consenting. But to put children through this, children, and this was approved and people agree to this and y'all talked about it and people made money off of this. I cannot. Like, who did all this? Exactly. Nickelodeon knew about the taint thing and let it slide completely. So did the writers. The writers, that's the other thing too. This is why I'm like, when I rewatched the first and second episode, I really had to understand, because that's kind of where my mind went. All right, who these writers are definitely reason to complain. Shitty work environment. Completely get that. You got the sexist stuff going on. Men are getting better jobs. It's 1999. What an opportunity, that type of situation. But it just made me so sad to see that if you like, and I'll repeat it again, if you were a writer and you were going through all this shit with Dan Schneider and company and those executives and associates, you think that these kids that were also child actors, they weren't having it as hard as you? Like, that's the piece that I'll never understand. So everybody, even the writers to a certain degree, it's like, and I shout out to BJ because she pointed this out too, and I said, this is so right. Dude, this is so right. The first episode, they talked about the writer's experience and everything that they went through and whatnot. And then they kind of shifted to like the actors. But to me, it was almost like they were trying to put these writers into the places of these child actors. And you truly can't mix both of them. They had different roles. It's very similar, like what Serge says in Scientology. Kids can't consent. So then you have these issues of where kids are getting emancipated. Lord have mercy, you got conservatorships to worry about, then you had emancipations to worry about, right? Once they get a little bit older and they start making a little bit more money, right? Like that's what it is. So nobody is safe. Nobody's safe. But I also feel like these the editor, the cameraman, the writers, all had roles and were being paid. Maybe not the best, horrible work conditions. Get it? Got it? But they didn't have it as bad as the victims, which are the children who could not consent and who kind of fell into this category of, we don't know everything, right, that's been said or hasn't been said. For all we know, there could be a lot of other victims that have not spoken out, okay, that haven't been able to speak out. So keep that in mind. But these adults right here, you can't put them in the same category. Matter of fact, don't even fucking put them on this damn show. Like that's what got to me too. Because I started realizing y'all were the ones writing some of these scripts? Approved by who? Exactly. Who did the baby fetus makeup? Those are questions, legitimate questions that I have. Who did this to this young man right here? Who thought it was okay? Who said this was okay? Who put peanut butter on his body? Who did that? Who said it was okay? That's what I want to know. Who wrote that? Who did it? Where did that come from? Why did it come from here? You need help. That's what you need.
I think that some of the on-air dares went too far. I think they pushed the envelope too far. Not all of them, not most of them, but some did. Nickelodeon wanted to do their version of Fear Factor. At the time we were shooting All That, so I was tasked with doing these on-air dares with the All That cast. So we get with the writers and we come up with all these ideas, and it's hard to do because we don't have the budget of Fear Factor, and we can't put the kids in dangerous situations like the adults are put in. So it was hard to come up with stuff. But we would come up with all these ideas of dares they could do. We would give them to the network, and they would say, tell us the ones that were okay.
Right.
Yeah, like put a fucking scorpion on your mouth. Who in their right mind would do that? I mean, can you I don't know about y'all. I don't think those are animals that you can, insects, whatever they are. I know they're related to the spider family. Those aren't things that you can just tame. Put it right in your mouth or put you in some like really crazy situations, and you're doing it with your castmates. Okay. And it's like, who would do that? Who approves that? And like me, you said, many people. Then put an address on it. Put a name on it. I want everybody's name out there. That's what you need to do. You don't just deflect. Well, some executives, there was executives in New York, put a fucking name on it. Put a name on it. Put an address. Drop that location.
Those are the ones we shot. Those are the ones that aired. At the time, I had no indication that any kid ever had a problem with them. But when I was watching the show over the past 2 nights, I now know that there were kids who did have problems with the on-air dares. And it breaks my heart. And I'm so sorry. I am so sorry to any kid who ever had to do a dare or anything that they didn't want to do or weren't comfortable doing. We went out of our way to make sure they were safe and that everything was done properly. But if a kid was scared and didn't want to do it, kids shouldn't have had to do it.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, I mean, because that's what they would, I'm sure, right? Nobody told this to Dan, you guys. Listen, nobody told him anything. He just found out that they felt uncomfortable. These past 2 days, it's been like a revelation. That's what it's been. You know what? He didn't know. It's a revelation. What's an epiphany? That's what it was. And through this docuseries, he didn't know. He had no idea. No idea. Who did it? Why?
Period. The end. Right. And if I had known at the time, I would have changed it on the spot.
He
now,
would have.
We also saw the
like
series
this.
highlight 2 former writers viewers, 2 women, who spoke about a wage discrepancy. Now, I know that you don't divvy out salaries. Talk to me about that part.
Well, you're correct. I have nothing to do with paying writers. I never have. I've never made a writer's deal. And of all the writers I've been in a writer's room with, I never even knew how much most of them were getting paid.
Yeah.
Wow. See? Wow. He said, look, that wasn't me. That I didn't have to do with the pay deal or anything. But I mean, what is that all about? Kind of makes you wonder, right?
Yeah, but we saw these 2 women.
Yeah, we did.
Who were writers for you sharing one salary. How does that happen?
It's very simple. There's a common practice in television when hiring writers. If you have a spot for a new writer, sometimes you'll go to 2 writers and say, hey, if you 2 new writers for your first job are willing to share a salary, you can both have the job. They have the opportunity to say, yes, that sounds good, or no, thank you.
Oh yeah, because so what has happened? Does that happen to the men too? I mean, that's a great question, and I would agree, BJ. Like, is Boogie trying to rehabilitate him, to trying to humanize Dan? I mean, he's human, y'all. He didn't know. He didn't know. He just found out like 2 days ago. Well, this docuseries was released, just like everybody else. He didn't know that everybody had an issue with, Fear Factor type of tactics on the set. He didn't know. He didn't know. What are you guys talking about? Give him a break. He didn't know. Okay.
In this case, it was 2 women writers. I've done another show where that teaming was done with 2 male writers and they split a salary. I did another show where it was a male and a female writer and they split a salary. So
and these are all first-time writers.
All first-time writers.
Wow.
Looking for their first gig.
Got it. Now in the series,
Now, now, Boogie, why did you have to like put that in there? Now these are all first-time writers because when you're a first-time writer, just like they mentioned on the first episode, we were first-time writers, and this was an opportunity. You know, they didn't hire women back then. We were first-time writers, and therefore that's why we took the job. And yeah, we split the salary. That's what we had to do. Sometimes we worked for free. That's what we did, right? Notice how we had to kind of put that in there. Thought that was interesting. Hmm, very interesting. Hold up. Greg says, being in this industry, it's from the top and bottom up. Every adult involved was in a position of power in a chain, an abusive, manipulative culture, a virus in the industry. Yeah, and he's the showrunner, isn't he? Isn't he supposed to know the writers and the show and everything? Well, he didn't know this time. He didn't know, you know? Yep, and they muddied the waters, mixed all the allegations in together and all the different predators. It's like, wait, what did any of them actually do again? Masterful. It's a very much manipulative PR movement here. And it's unfortunate to see somebody trying to help in that. Boogie, he doesn't need you. Okay? He's okay. All right? He doesn't need you to muddy that. No, no, no.
they also highlighted two black actors who said that they felt overlooked. Now, I want to be clear. I'm never going to speak on anyone else's journey. Yeah. I can talk about my experience, how my experience was with you, what I saw prior to working with you. But again, I don't want to speak on anyone's journey.
Yes, Boogie, but you're putting in all of these qualifiers, all of these things, trying to soften that a little bit. Like, see?
I saw you be honored for diversity in your work.
Yes. And the reason for that.
He said he got a diploma for diversity. He was honored for diversity in his work. They gave him a little plaque. Did he just put? Is that what's it called? Anybody in the chat, let me know. What is it? This is like one of those, when they help you. What's the word? And I don't even want to say it's like that specific situation where it's like, that's my black friend, that type of thing. But this is a little bit different, kind of like that. Like, it's almost like, oh, I'm really not racist. I'm just, doing me. I'm doing Hollywood. That type of deal. Yes, yes. A red herring, that's for sure. But it's almost like, you were honored with diversity. Yo, you're not racist. You don't see color. Totally. Totally. Yeah, you're good. Tokenism for sure, right? Nepotism. There you go. Put it in the chat. I mean, put in the word.
For that is diversity has always been very important to me in my shows.
Yes.
If you go back to the very first.
I mean, yo, think back of like little fetus right here. Okay? This is diversity. This is what diversity looks like. Okay? Definitely. Don't and if you had not watched that, it is disgusting even looking at it. Watching that. Did people really think this was funny? I mean, I can understand the children, but the adults, the writers that wrote this, y'all really thought this shit was funny? Yes. Did he get a diversity award for this too? This is interesting. I mean, I just want to know. I have questions. That's all. I have questions.
First Nickelodeon show I ever made. That's very evident, as it is in the second one. And then the first movie I ever made for Nickelodeon, which starred Kenan and Kel, and every show I did after that.
Oh, yes. You can't forget that one.
In it. I'm very proud of that. It's very important to me. And not only am I proud that they were in my shows, I'm exceptionally proud of the achievements they've had beyond my shows, and they've gone on to bigger and better things. And
yeah, because he did that. He did that, and that's why he got the diversity award. This little little diploma that they type up, write up, and then they give it to him. Yeah, Nickelodeon.
And that gives me a great sense of pride.
Well, something that really kind of bothered me was how they depicted your relationship with the cast.
Yeah, it bothered me too.
Yeah, just me being there, I knew the dynamic was trust. I understood that in situations where they may have had turmoil, whether it be with their families, whether it be other castmates, they came to you. Versus how they made you look. With that said, Amanda Bynes, was brought up in the series and her emancipation and how you were involved in that. Can you talk to us about it a bit?
Sure. Amanda was between the ages of 16 and 17.
Wow.
And she wanted to get emancipated from her parents.
Yes.
Which is a fairly common thing with successful young actors.
I mean, there was a generation when a lot of child stars were getting emancipated, but who's really pushing for them to be emancipated? Like, is that just a thing that people do? Conservatorship, emancipation, what else? All kinds of shit that Hollywood pulls. Isn't it crazy? You know, and I'm not saying that her family was perfect or anything like that, but she was pushing for emancipation? Really? I don't even think I knew what the fuck emancipation was when I was 16, 17. I don't know.
At least at the time.
Sure.
And she wanted that for herself. So she turned to her team, which included her lawyer, her agent, her manager, her publicist, me, because she included me as part of her team, thought of me that way. We supported her. She tried to get emancipated. It ended up not working out. She didn't.
Well, since we're here, let's stay here for a moment. There was also an incident where she had ran away from home, if you would.
Wow.
Can you talk to us a little bit just to clear the air of exactly what happened in that situation?
Yes. One night, it was very late. Well,
Hold
after
up.
midnight.
PJ said, PJ, it's giving Mark Leda assistant interviewing him with SOP. Just don't pull any bank statements. Don't do any of that, and we'll be fine.
1 or 2 in the morning, phone rang. I answered. It was Amanda. She was upset. She was in distress. She had had some conflict with her parents, I think her father, and she called me. I was immediately concerned about her safety.
Oh.
I called someone who I knew was fairly nearby. That person was able to go and pick her up. Then I knew she was safe. I felt better. She ended up being taken to the police.
Well, regardless of what some people may think, I think it's only positive that you are there for people when they need you.
My goodness, man. He was there when people needed him. Give the man a fucking cookie right now. That's what you need to do.
That said, let's talk about some of the things that have just been swirling forever. You were banned from your set.
Never happened. That is a false rumor.
What happened?
Add it to the list of false rumors.
Talk to me. What happened?
They were adult actresses at the time, and they had their own specific reasons for not wanting to do the show anymore. I'm not judging that. It got tense, and what they don't know, maybe, is I did everything I could to make that show go away. My producer partner at the time, we would call and say, this is not a good situation.
Okay.
So I decided I'm going to do what most showrunners do, which is you're not on the set. There's a director there to shoot it. I'll go up to the writer's room. I'll work on the next script. But because everybody was so used to me caring about every detail of every show so much, for me not to be on the set, maybe some people thought I got banned.
So it was more of an assumption because this guy's usually here and now he's not.
I don't know if it was an assumption. I don't know if somebody thought they were making me look bad by saying I got banned from the set. I have no idea.
Okay.
All I know is I was never banned from the set.
Yep.
You know, it would make you wonder if that's what they alluded to or said in the series. Like, why? I mean, I guess if I was Dan, I'd want to clear that up, and I'd take my cookie and spaghetti too. You know, that's what I would do. But I'm just like, not that I'm him, right? But it's still, like, I just kind of, this is interesting that had to be brought up, right?
The darkest part of this series discussed child predators. Now, I want to make sure
the darkest part, okay?
that we clear a couple of things up.
Okay.
Brian Peck was not hired by you.
No, I did not hire Brian Peck.
This was a Tolan Robbins production?
Yeah. And when Drake and I talked and he told me what had happened, I was more devastated by that than anything that ever happened to me in my career thus far. And I told him, I'm here for you. What do you need? Which Drake mentioned in the show that we watched last night. And next, I heard that he went to court when this guy was being tried, Peck. And when Drake walked in, he saw 50 people sitting on the side of the courtroom supporting Peck. A lot of them pretty famous. Of course, Drake was devastated that happened. And
Yeah, and again, it's that shifting of blame. What could you have done? What else could you have spoken publicly? Could you have said, this man who has been charged with, violating a child, he's out here working. These industry people have a lot of power. They have a lot more power than, they act like they don't. Like, to me, it's like you have a following, people know you from certain things. You would think you'd be a little bit more proactive and putting out the word out, any level of responsibility, especially if you had a really great relationship with Drake Bell, right? Something. People writing character witness letters for, Brian Peck and whatnot. Great. So speak out on that. Do something about it. But, again, different times, right? Different times. He's been memorizing lines with this dialogue. Well, I'm just saying somebody's coaching him. It sounds very deflecting. And then you have the person, Boogie's interviewing him, and it's like, it's almost like motivational interviewing, a bit of like, you know, help me, let me hold your hand to get to the answer to where we need to go, right? Rehearse for sure. That's for sure.
and even more disappointing, 41 of those people wrote letters for Peck, character letters, praising him for who he was and asking for leniency. And they knew that he was guilty. They knew he had confessed to some degree, and they still did this.
Yep.
That's baffling that adults would do that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if people know this, but Drake's mom, a lovely woman who I stay in contact with this day, she came to me at the time, and she.
I don't know why he would mention this. Why? Why would he mention this? Why would he? Why would you say this? Why say this?
She said, Dan, I'm not good with words like you are.
Yeah.
And would you help me with my speech for the judge?
Let me take a drink. You said Oprah should have interviewed him? No, no. You said it's fake? You said it reminds you of the Oprah interview with Harry and Meghan. Absolutely no real. Hold up. You said no real. I missed your comment. No real questions or pushback. You're right, MJ. You're right. He's guiding that interview. That's what he's doing. That motivational interviewing type deal where you're a guide to the person that you're talking to. I cannot, and I can't believe Boogie would even do this. You said rewind it 5 seconds. All right, let me go back a little bit because he goes, okay, right there. And let me do this. Okay, let's do this.
Came to me at the time, and she said, Dan, I'm not good with words like you are.
Yeah.
And would you help me with my speech for the judge?
I need some violins in the chat, please and thank you. I'm gonna need a violin gif at some point.
I said, of course. And I did. And he ended up going to prison and serving his time. And yeah, that was probably the darkest part of my career. And here's the kicker that I really don't.
The darkest part of my career. I mean, what about the children? What about Drake Bell? What about all these other people?
Don't get. After he got out of prison and was, to my knowledge, a registered sex offender, he was hired on a Disney Channel show.
And what'd you do about it? Did you call Disney? Did you say, Disney, he's a registered sex offender? My understanding is that even Disney worked around that. They figured something to do with that. But did you blast it? Did you put it out there? Did you say anything about it? Did you, I don't know, tweet about it? Write a book about it? What else did you do?
I don't understand that. I never,
Yeah.
I don't understand.
I don't understand.
I appreciate you sharing that, man. Are you okay? You want to take a minute?
Yeah.
Hell fucking no. He said, I appreciate you sharing. Are you okay, man? You want to take a minute? You want a hug? Do you want a cookie? How about a brownie?
All right, let's keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we really unpacked some important things.
No, you're right, It Talks Baby Girl. Why didn't Disney, ABC do their due diligence? I mean, the case was news in Hollywood. It was. So what had happened? And so my understanding is what they did is that they did like a workaround so that he wasn't around children, at least at Disney, when all of this was going on with Brian Peck, so that he wasn't around children. They figured out a way. But it's like if people knew, a lot of people could have spoken out and said, don't put this man around kids. Don't do that. Right? Like they just looked away from it, right? That's just so infuriating. This is like I remember many, many years ago, I used to work in like customer service, like one of my first jobs or whatever. And when there was a wet floor, you put a mop, you put like a little sign in there, right? So people don't slip. It's a wet floor. You don't want people slipping, right? I kind of feel like it like that way. Like, why, if it was a PSA everywhere and articles everywhere, people were talking about it, it wasn't a secret. Why would they hire this man again to work in a children's television show? Willful ignorance to do background checks, or just the ignorance, or just you just don't give a shit. You don't care. You go hire whoever. That's what it is. I mean, they did in this other, in Nickelodeon, it was three other pedos, and so many of them offended and hurt children. And Drake Bell wasn't the only one. There was other victims. And like I said, some of the parents were okay with it because they didn't want to bring it to light. Okay. Some people ignored it. Some people went with it. Some people, is this an opportunity? You don't want to go and make too much noise or complain too much. I get that. Ignorance is no excuse for the law. That's for sure, man. I mean,
We set the record straight on a lot of things. Before I let you get out of
we set the record straight, y'all. Is the record straight? Let me know. Are y'all set? Are y'all straight with the record? Okay.
here, I appreciate the vulnerability that you use in knowing that there's
Yes.
definitely things that you would have and should have done differently.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Right? Like there should have been things that should have done differently.
Is there anything that we haven't discussed? Anything that if you could go back and
No, and it wasn't that they were okay with it. What I'm saying, It Talks Baby Girl, is I'm saying that there were some parents that knew what was going on and they didn't speak out. They didn't want to get called out. They didn't want that from them. They, like the lady, who was it? Um, who was her mother was like a former person in Hollywood, and she didn't get to do Hollywood. Her mom protected her from Hollywood, but she really wanted to be in Hollywood, and then her child became like what is it? Her name was Brandy. Her child became like an extra on the Amanda Show. Okay? Yes. And she didn't initially say anything. It came to her. It came to her. Those allegations came to her based off of their investigation, right? So kind of keep that in mind. I mean, some people didn't speak on it.
can navigate the journey differently, what would that look like?
Yeah, there's definitely things that I would do differently. One that I think would be really, really important is when you're hiring young actors, minors, to work in television, I would suggest that we have a licensed therapist there to
Yeah.
oversee that process.
So now he's talking about what they can do better at this point, right? Yeah.
For the specific reason of making sure that those kids really wanted to do this job, that they really wanted to be on television. Maybe they should even be informed about what that means. What's it going to mean if you're famous? What's that going to mean on social media? What's it going to mean within your family? Let them find out. And then that way, if a kid doesn't want to be on a TV show, they can opt out.
Yeah, I mean, let's take advice from somebody who knows, right? Who, according to everybody else, he created a very hostile work environment. He knows, he lived, I don't know how many years. So he definitely can give some really great advice on this. Mhm. He's still doing some of this work, right? Like, it's not like he just left. Right, he's putting the responsibility on the kids, on the therapist, on other people because they didn't have that before. I get it, you know? Great suggestion, but yeah, I mean, look who it's coming from.
That psychologist, that therapist could come to us and say this kid doesn't want to do it, or their parents aren't understanding of what's going to come, and then we could avoid the mistake of ever putting a kid in a TV show that didn't want to be there. And additionally, the main thing that I would change is how I treat people and everyone. I definitely at times didn't give people the best of me. I didn't
Oh,
show enough
yes.
patience. I could be cocky and definitely
Yes.
over ambitious, and sometimes just straight up rude and obnoxious. And I am so sorry that I ever was. And when I watched the show, I could see the hurt in some people's eyes, and it
Yeah.
made me feel awful and regretful.
I mean, the show was like an intervention for this man, because it was like 2 days of watching this thing. Nobody's ever told him anything. He didn't know. BJ says the therapist whose job also depends on these people's whims. No, that's a good point. Whose salary, who's what? I mean, what are they gonna do, right? Just kind of makes you wonder who can pre-screen the ones more vulnerable and mind control. No, you're right. It's like a double-edged sword. And the advice that's coming from the audacity. First of all, the audacity for him to even say what they need on the set. The audacity. Get out of here.
And sorry. I wish I could go back, especially to those earlier years of my career, and bring the growth and the experience that I have
Mm-hmm.
now, and just do a better job, and never ever feel like it was okay to be an asshole to anyone ever. Um, Look, I wanted to make funny TV shows for kids, and we definitely did that. But
Mm-hmm.
if I could go back, I would get it done in different ways. I'd just be nicer as often as possible,
Yes.
and listen more to the people on my team.
Yep.
And I would do everything that I could to make sure that everyone had a good experience.
That's right. That's what he would do, y'all. He would do that.
Uh, that's what I do differently.
Dan, I appreciate your time.
I appreciate you.
Thanks for stopping by, man.
Thank
you. Yep. Oh, wow. So how many views has this stupid Apollo lie? Oh Lord, look it. And they turned off the comments. You have got to be kidding me. Hold up. Look at this. Comments turned off. I don't think they were turned off before. Oh, you say he's gonna do it all in a new show premiering? Yeah, he's got to stop passing the buck. Well, if y'all want to leave him a comment, you can't. Okay? You can't. Not at all. Because he's got them blocked. Okay? Turned off. You can't do it. You can't do it. Y'all see that? He can't take the heat. No, he can't. He's trying to save face. Big. All right. So if you have not watched it, I would recommend that y'all watch it. I mean, with the biggest trigger warning, I still have a lot of thoughts that I want to get into, but I don't feel like I can I haven't fully processed everything that I want to say quite yet about it. So I might do like another reaction to it. I just feel like it's just, it was one thing to watch it. Maybe I shouldn't have watched it all in one sitting. Okay. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe I should have taken some breaks, but it was very triggering. And the second episode had me at tears, especially listening to Brian and his and his mother and Brian, and they're in there and they're trying to like make it work, and they're not trying to make a lot of noise and talking about some of just the weird racial undertones. Like that really got to me, especially the shit that they put this young man through. Um, and then knowing that some of this is going to be talked about on Twitter, on social media, it's going to get criticized. Like, yo, it really, Christina, really brought me to tears when I was watching that part. And I said I had to fix my eyeliner because I went live after that. But I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts. I have more thoughts, but like I said, this whole Nickelodeon thing is a little bit new to me because I don't think I've ever really looked into stuff like that deep as it pertains to Hollywood. I don't know, man. No. Yeah, he didn't acknowledge the peanut butter. They didn't acknowledge the little fetus. You notice how they didn't acknowledge any of that. There was a lot of things that weren't acknowledged. They weren't like, I want to understand, and even there's this level of deflection. Like he didn't talk about why was he spending so much time with Amanda Bynes in that with her by herself. Like what's up with this closeness, um, favoritism, right? There's so much more that he did not address that I don't even feel like there was enough time for this whole thing to really get into at all, at all whatsoever. Mountain Princess says if they did those hard questions, he would not have done the interview. Well, I think it would have been better not to have said anything. He should have just not said anything. I mean, people are tearing his ass up on Twitter right now. I'm processing a bit more. I just don't really know what to make of it. Like I said, I'm so new to this Nickelodeon side of it. And then to have this, I don't know. You said I was more angry at the way social media treated Drake during the times his low moments were being played out in the media and made his trauma commentary and jokes. Yes. And yeah. Um, so my understanding is that Drake then also either picked up some charges. I'm not really sure because I've never really looked into Drake Bell like that, as far as his stuff. But yo, like he was perpetrated on, and if he became like this is like a good example of like that kind of a cycle, you know? It would totally now makes more sense as far as that goes. Now it's never okay, and I definitely feel like if he's done his time or whatever if I don't know if he's been convicted. I really don't know the ins and outs of Drake Bell. I felt really bad. I felt really bad for Drake's dad because this isolation that happened between him and his father. Like we need men to be more invested in their children, and that's a great like that was a great example of, well, let me put this out here. We need parents to be invested in their children, period, right? But for that specific situation, it made me feel really sad for him. Like your dad your dad was right on the money. Your dad right there. He was right on the money. It's just sad, man. It's just like fatherly intuition that we don't tend to nurture often anywhere. I I I I, I I'm lost with that. Like I'm trying to process it a little bit more. No, he didn't address the foot fetish. He didn't address that foot fetish anywhere. No. I have a question. Boogie, ask him about the foot fetishes. Okay? Ask him about why he was making Ariana Grande putting that, was trying to squeeze a potato to milk it. Like, what was up with all these things? Were these run by the executives and they approved it and they, signed it off and they were like, cool, we love this, we'll do this? They didn't address shit. So, okay. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Leave me a comment if you want us to. I mean, if you need I could process this a little bit more and talk a little bit more about this maybe tomorrow. But I'm gonna tell you, it took me a minute to process this, and I'm still trying to figure this out too in my head because there's something that's not. There's so many things that are not landing very well with me, and maybe I need some time to really think about it. I shouldn't have just done it all in one day, but I was so heated, and then seeing this interview it just no, no, it's bullshit. All right, guys, I'm gonna let you guys go. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I definitely recommend you guys to watch it. But the biggest trigger warning that I give you, again, you can find it on Max or Discovery ID. You can watch it there. It's like 4 parts. I don't know if there'll be more, but if you do watch it, come back to my comments and let me know what you think. I want to know what you think about it. Okay. I will see you guys on the next one. I gotta go because see, I feel a little triggered now. I'll talk to you guys later. Rabbits out. Bye, guys.